So, to talk about Mr. Carnegie, he made a lot of his money in steel. He grew up very poor, but there was a man near him who had a private library, and he let Andrew use his library. So Andrew Carnegie knew early on the importance of reading to help people enrich them, enrichment, bring themselves, improve their lot, things like that. So as we know, Carnegie made a lot of money in steel, and then he started giving it away. And his idea was he would give it to cities who would ask that he would pay for the building of the library, but the collection and the staffing had to be paid for by the city. So he was providing the library. He also donated a number of organs to churches, so he was in a couple different fields there. But apparently, shortly after Carnegie began announcing that he would be making these donations, Professor O.F. Barber was president of the library board that year, and he wrote a letter to Carnegie. You may have heard of Barber School, named for Professor Barber. Okay, so then in the March 25th paper, 1902, there's a letter from James Bertram, Carnegie's secretary, that Carnegie was going to donate $60,000 for the library building. And of course, Professor Barber called a board meeting, and they accepted it, of course, and they went on to start deciding where the library property was going to be. There were several different places open for discussion. This was what was settled on. And they began the building, and then in November of 1903, they opened it up. And there's an article, by then, Mr. Early was head of the board. And he said, well, we don't have any chairs in the building yet, but we're going to open up anyhow. But to back up a little bit, because I want to talk about Elias Cosper, who was a young man in Rockford in the 1850s, served in the Civil War in the 1860s. He was also an avid reader and a proponent of libraries. So he was very much involved in the 1872 beginning of the library, and unfortunately did not live to see the Carnegie building. He died a year or so before that. But he was very active in making sure people had reading material all over. So that's one of the big things that a democracy can give you, is you can have a public library. Okay, in the 1920s, they did a bit of library redecoration. And then, okay, let's do a picture here too. This is the Wyman Street side of the Carnegie Library. And you can see the pillars are square. And the first landscaper was Robert Tinker. You might have heard of Tinker's Cottage. That was one of the things he was involved in. He was another avid reader and librarian. And I think if you've ever been to Tinker Cottage, you've seen his library there. This is the riverside of the Carnegie Library. There was a lot of discussion when they first bought the land, what side of the river would it be on? Well, the west side went out, and the people on the east side weren't very happy. So that is why the library tends to have two front doors. And the other reason is after they opened the Carnegie Library here, they promptly opened the 7th Street branch, which was in the Svay-Soner building. And the Svay-Soner Men's Chorale is still around. And I guess one of the interesting things I've read is the library, the basement had a bowling alley, and I think the Svay-Soners sang up on the top floor. So I'm not sure how quiet it was as a library, but I bet it was a lot of fun. So that shows you the two locations. And just to let you know, these round pillars, if you go across the street and take a look at the Civil War statue on top of the pillar in front of the Wyman Street side of Memorial Hall, that's a pillar from the riverside of the library. So it's a little bit of the Carnegie Library across the street from us, so we can look at it.